Hi everyone, welcome to the Prime Use series of interviews with top business and technology experts. I'm Dana Kohut, and in this interview episode, I had a pleasure to sit and talk with Austin Parker, who is Principal Developer Advocate at Lightstep. And the key topic of our conversation was the upcoming DevOps event called Deserted Island DevOps, a virtual event that is going to happen on September 14th and 15th. Last year, the event had over 15,000 unique viewers and attendees. So what is it in the event that generates such a huge interest in the professional community, right? Where does Austin see the future of the event, and how different is the event from other virtual or live events on DevOps, on Kubernetes, or Kubernetes security? Right? Who are the keynote speakers? And what is it specifically that Austin is planning to learn and take away from the conference? All of this and more in the interview episode. So watch it. And if you like it, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the Prime U YouTube channel. Yeah, stay tuned, and I hope you really enjoy it. So how are you today?
Fantastic.
Really? It's still early morning, like 9 a.m.
Oh, it's like 12. It's noon for me now. I'm
Oh,
on the
really?
East Coast.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought that you're in California.
No, I'm just so used to everyone I talk to being in California that I just give out my availability in Pacific time.
I see. Okay, cool. So today I'd like to talk with you about this upcoming event, right? It's called Deserted Island DevOps
Yep.
Conference. So tell me a little bit more about the event. I know that last year it has gathered over 15,000 unique attendees, viewers, right? And I believe it's like huge number, right? So tell me, like, what is your role in that event, and like when did it start and who is behind it?
Yeah, great questions. Well, first off, thanks for having me on the show. This is I love talking about this stuff. But to give you the quick history, this all started back in, if everyone remembers, April of 2020, when kind of the pandemic, COVID-19 was really getting
Yeah,
out there, and everyone was kind of stuck at home. And a lot of people, myself included, were really into Animal Crossing on the Switch.
hmm
And I think it would had this, just a very nice, relaxing sort of thing. You could go and you could do your little task, and it was cute and kind of comfortable and cozy, and just when everything in the rest of the world felt like it was not any of that at all. I think that was really relaxing to a lot of people. So I, at the time, was, working at Lightstep, and still am, as working in developer relations. And a lot of people, a lot of my colleagues, a lot of people in the industry were seeing, events being canceled left and right. Like nobody could really get together in person. And I kind of had this idea, joking around on Twitter. It's like, oh, you could do a DevOps conference in Animal Crossing,
okay.
and some people were like, ah, ha, 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 how would that work? And I thought about it for a minute and was like, well, yeah, actually, you could do this because you could just kind of have, invite people over and they could give their talk inside the game, and you can kind of composite together the audio and the, slides from Zoom over the actual game world and stream it out on Twitch. And I put up a website for it and threw up a CFP, and like the first couple days I had like hundreds of people, showing up and like registering and submitting to talks. And I was like, well, this is, now I'm committed. Now I have to do it. We put the whole thing came together in about a month, originally.
Wow. You
And
were really short in terms of like time frame.
yeah, I mean, well, it's like, hey, this pandemic going on. What else am I going to do, right? But I think that it wound up being like super popular for a couple of reasons. One, it's unique, right? Like I think especially since then we've all been to virtual events, we've all been to virtual conferences, and it just feels like another day at the office because all you're doing is you're sitting there and you're talking to a camera, or you're watching people talking to a camera, and there's slides, and it doesn't feel very engaging or different.
Hmm.
And I think what is attractive about this is that it is something different, right? You're not watching other people, you're watching their little Animal Crossing avatars kind of bop around and talk to you, which is a change. I think it
Hmm.
also it's a very limited platform in a lot of ways too, right? Like if you're going to go in and speak inside this game where all you can do is like you have 8 little buttons to do different emotions, and you don't the only thing you can really do from terms of expressiveness is dressing up your avatar in the game, your villager. But I think those constraints made for a lot of creative talks and a lot of people that really played with the theme, and a lot of people that you know didn't just go and give the same talk they would always give. It gave them something to focus on and let them be a bit more creative. And that's something that I think the audience really saw as well, right? Because we did it again last year, and we had a bunch of people show up, a bunch of new speakers, and we're going to do it again this year with a couple of little tweaks. Now that kind of the world is opening back up, that I think will make it even more interesting. So
Yeah, cool. I like the story that how it was kind of spontaneous, right? Idea of
yeah,
creating. Yeah, but it actually worked out. And it's, as you said, it is different, right? All of us attending these virtual events, but it is different. And I actually checked, the recordings, right? And I could see that people, they would, like come up with really creative avatars. Like they would, like put something that is would resemble them, like if they have colorful hair, their avatar
hmm
would also. Yeah, so I really like that. So you mentioned that there are some tweaks, right, this year, so something is going to be different. Is it because the
yes.
world is opening up and like attracting people and engaging people to the virtual event might be a bit more like challenging? So what is it that you have prepared for attendees?
So I think the biggest change is this year it's a hybrid virtual event. But when
Hmm.
you hear, now when you see people talk about hybrid virtual events, what they mean is, well, you can come in person as an attendee and you can kind of have the old, the classic conference experience, or you can sit at home and kind of watch this live stream and you don't get everything. So I decided to kind of flip this around a bit, and it's a hybrid experience for the speakers. So we
Hmm.
found an actual island and there's a hotel on it, and a venue, an event space. So what we're doing is we're getting the speakers to all come in person, as many of them as feel comfortable, coming in person to this island, and we're building a little studio there. And to the attendees, it's kind of going, they're going to get the same thing. They're going to see the Animal Crossing island, but now that we have a lot of the speakers kind of in the same room with each other, we're able to play with this a little more and actually have the real world and the virtual world sort of blend together. Um, and it gives us a lot of options for things that we couldn't in the past. So, for instance, we're going to have some live panels that wouldn't have really been possible, I think, with everyone on Zoom, just because if you've tried to, if you've tried if you've tried to talk in a Zoom with like 5 other people at the same time, it's not great. It's just like everyone taking their, everyone waits and takes their turn,
Hmm.
versus sort of an in-person panel where there's a bit more sort of organic interplay of people. Also, it lets us have a much better quality, I think, of the production values get to be a lot higher, because instead of having to kind of deal with everyone's audio being kind of compressed twice, where they're coming in through Zoom and then they're being encoded and going back out through Twitch, we have good mics, good cameras, just that locality of the speakers being in the same room as each other does help a lot with the finished product. And so I think the audience will get a better viewing experience because they'll actually have, you know, that higher quality of production. So, and I think also it's going to be really advantageous to the speakers, because one thing we've always prioritized, one thing that we've always kind of been really intentional about, is having the speakers feel like this is something that, you know, that they're a part of it too, right? You're not, whenever you speak at Deserted Island, you kind of, you're not, it's not a one and done thing. Like, you're kind of part of the family now if you want to be. So we've actually invited all of the speaker, everyone that's spoken before. We put out an open invitation and said, hey, if you'll want to come be in the audience, right, be part of the in-person audience, then we've got some spots for you. So it's going to be, people that have spoken before, people that are speaking this year, And having those people kind of all in attendance at the same time is a really great way for speakers, especially to help not only learn from people that have been doing this a while, but also kind of network with each other and learn about, like, hey, what's working, what's not working in terms of events, in terms of like developer education, the things that we're all trying to do, right? So it's almost two conferences in one, right? It's like a DevOps conference out to the world, and then it's sort of like a developer relations conference for the speakers themselves.
Cool. I really like it how you actually build community, right? It's not only sharing experience, but it's also building this DevOps community. And I really
Yeah.
like it. Yeah, I checked on the keynote speakers that are going to be there, and I actually reached out to one of the speakers, and we have recorded a short interview, right, with Hila Fish from
Yeah.
like a senior developer, DevOps engineer at Vix, right? And she has shared what are her expectations, right? Why she is excited about attending this event. So it would be nice also to share with our audience later in this interview. So,
Definitely.
but yeah, so from you, like who are the keynote speakers, right? So maybe, so as you said, it's like is some you have invited people that have previously attended
Hmm.
right the event, but meaning like this year, who are the speakers and what kind of insight they are going to bring to
So
the audience?
yeah, great. We've got, like, actually one other nice thing about doing this, the way we're doing it, is we're able to split it up into 2 days. So we actually are able to accept more speakers than ever before. Previously, it's been really hard because we've only had like a 1 day block to kind of do everything in. Now we've got 2 days, and so it's a lot easier to bring more stuff in. Our first day is going to be opened by Heidi Waterhouse of Launch Darkly. She's going to be giving a fantastic keynote. And if you've never heard Heidi speak before, she's just an incredibly engaging speaker and brings a lot to the table. We've also got a couple of other really cool talks on the first day. One thing I've heard, but after each event, we kind of reach out to the attendees and say like, "Hey, what did you like? What would you like to see more of?" And we had a lot of feedback in the past about kind of two things: one on security, and two on Kubernetes. So we're meeting everyone in the middle there, and we're doing talks on not only Kubernetes but also Kubernetes security. Um,
Mhm.
we've also got a pretty good selection of talks on sort of work itself, right? I think it's important when you think about DevOps to not only think about the technology, because it's very easy to get caught up in, all the flashy you know, new release of this, new version of that, like, oh, this is a new tool, that's a new tool, and it's really easy to go to a DevOps event and just sort of feel like you're getting blasted with all this stuff about tech, 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 tech. But I think it's really important that we focus on sort of the human aspect of this as well. And so we've got some talks from people like Amy DeGrette, who is at DigitalOcean, and
Mhm.
she's going to be talking about effective distributed communication, kind of lessons learned from the pandemic. Obviously, Gila is going to be there talking about sort of how she migrated their SCM from Bitbucket to GitLab, which I think is going to be a really interesting talk. We've got a couple talks on observability. One from Pete Cheslock on the first day, which is going to be really interesting. I think it's talking about the evolution of observability, where things are going next. And we've got what I think will be a really fun one from Michelle Mannering, who's a dev advocate at GitHub, and she's going to be talking about the sort of the collaborative pillar of DevOps, right? On the second day, we are going to be kicked off with Kat Cosgrove at Pulumi, who the internet's own Kat Cosgrove. Um, but she's going to have a really interesting talk, I think, about community, but not like small scale community, sort of more the open source community that's built around products like Kubernetes, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. She has a history now of kind of working in the CNCF as part of like Kubernetes release teams and other things, and has a lot of firsthand experience in sort of dealing with the intersection of these open source public communities and also the corporations that sponsor them. And I think that's going to be something that everyone is going to learn a lot from. We have some talks on, oh yeah, a lot of Kubernetes talks the second day actually.
Okay.
A lot of Kubernetes talks. A couple of, I think one's gonna be really fun is we have a two-person talk from Daniel Kim and Fatima Khalid, sorry, and they are going to talk about how they got into DevOps, right? Their DevOps journey over the past couple years, which I think should be really exciting. So I don't want to spoil the whole thing. Like I said, we got about 20 different speakers. If you want to learn more about all the talks, the agenda is up on our website, desertedisland.club. You can just put that at the bottom. Um, and you can read everyone's bio and the description of their talk and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that, Austin. And like I would be curious, you got this raising like interest, right, to your event, to the event, and you've got great speakers. So have that as specifically. So if there is someone listening to us and they think, hey, I want to be a speaker, I've got a great story to share, right? How can one become a speaker?
For Deserted Island in general,
Yeah,
we are not
yeah.
accepting any more talks for this year, but I'm not sure what the future of the event's going to be, but I would say the best way to keep tabs on what's happening is to follow our Twitter account at DIDevOps, or yeah, probably the Twitter account at DIDevOps, because if there's something new next year, then that's where we'll announce the call for speakers. But the other thing you can do is you can join you register for the event and join our Discord server, because we have a really great community on there of people that have spoken before, of people, technologists and DevOps practitioners and SREs and everyone that's kind of working in the space. And one of the things we're going to have an opportunity for during the event itself is a chance to do a lot of Q&A about talking about doing things like this, right? Do you want to get into speaking at events like this? Well, we're going to have a bunch of people there that you can talk to, right, and
Mhm.
ask. So I think it's a good time to kind of join the community and be a part of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And where do you see the future, like for the event, right? It's like how would you see it evolve?
That's a good question. I don't know yet. I tell myself every year that I'm never going to do this again because
Okay.
it's very stressful. I think there's going to be something next year. I don't know if it's going to be Animal Crossing. We'll see. Um, I think there needs to be room in sort of the DevOps event industry, whatever you want to call it, right? But there needs to be room for experimentation. And one thing that I've tried to do with this event, and maybe it's this maybe sounds selfish, and maybe it is a little bit, but use it as a way to test out my theories about what makes a good developer event, right? What makes something people want to actually go to? How can we, as an industry, how can we as people who care about education and or educating people, entertaining people, all of that, how can we push the envelope of what events can be? Because, and I think what I actually have learned in a lot of ways over the past 3 years now is that it's actually super, like, the in-person aspect of these sort of events, like the physically bringing people together, is very, very, very important. Like, and I think that's what you've seen this year in sort of the return as people, you know,
Yeah.
leave COVID behind and leave the pandemic behind and just kind of get back out there. It's remarkable how much more people enjoy the experience of in-person events, even with the extremely real health risks that still exist around traveling and getting together with a bunch of other people. So I think there's some interesting ideas that we can play with in terms in the future, in terms of, like, for example, one thing I've kind of pitched around in my head is, instead of a hybrid event where the attendees are virtual, what if it's a hybrid event where the speakers are virtual? What if it's something like all the talks are pre-recorded and everyone watches the talks before they come to the event, and then everyone kind of discusses the talks at the event? I think there's a lot of different formats and concepts and things like that need to be played with, and need that kind, need people to go out and do those experiments rather than just sit around and talk about it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm hopeful that whatever this turns into next year or in the future, then it'll continue to be based around the idea of experimentation, having fun, being entertaining, and bringing people together into a community that is pretty deliberately for the people that are in it, right? Like we're not trying to make money off of this. In fact, one of the things that we're doing again this year is that because the tickets are free, um, I'm asking people during the stream if they can donate to the Trevor Project, which is a charity for LGBTQ youth and trans youth in the U.S. and around the world. And you know,
Oh,
obviously that's a pretty not contentious, but that's one of those things right now that is at top of mind, I think, for a lot of people. And I think that we, especially as people that work in technology, most of us are sort of very fortunate to have these mostly secure and high paying jobs. And I'm just asking, like, hey, can you give back a little, right? But I think that's kind of the vibe we're going for. I don't want this to become a big commercial thing. I want to use whatever little soapbox I have to try to make other people's lives better.
okay. That's very interesting. And so people, I like this, that people will be able, as you said, put that right to give back, donate to the important cause.
Yeah.
Um, Also, I like how you actually reframe this, that this event is about like experimentation and education, right? Like educate people and to have fun at the same time. But you also said that organizing and putting in place this event is quite stressful. And I would imagine that should be, right? Like it's like lots of things to handle. So what is it that actually, as you said, that every year you say you will not be doing that anymore, right? But what is it that you actually keeps you doing and organizing this event?
Oh gosh. I think it's mostly that I have a moment where I'm like, oh yeah, it's not that bad, and then I start doing it, and then and then I use that moment of, oh, it's not so bad, to announce it, and then I'm locked in, and then I can't back out. I think everyone, I think some people will give an answer to this question of like, oh, I do it because of because whatever reason, right? Because it's a way to get back, or it's a way to, improve the world, whatever. Um, I think some of it, a lot of it is because I've heard from people like that have been a part of it. They're like, oh, this is the most fun thing I've ever been a part of, right? Or I think this is so special, or whatever. And it's not like, oh, I'm doing this just to get praised by people, because I'm sure there are other far more efficient ways I could figure out to get a praise or acclaim.
Yeah, but
But I
that's
do think,
also important, right? So to hear that like
sure,
people have enjoyed and they have learned. So that is
yeah,
something that,
people, there, it has accomplished something, right? If nothing
yeah,
else, it's accomplished something for me. Um, because as small and kind of, not, I don't want to say irrelevant, but I do want to, it's not KubeCon, right? It's not reInvent. It's not some big, huge, world spanning thing. I'll keep doing stuff like this until I stop learning. And at the end of the day, like, yes, it's anxiety inducing, and it's really hard, and it's, you know, you let your expectations get out from, you get out over your expectations, and, you know, everything that doesn't go right hits, cuts like a knife. But every time I've done this, I've learned something important. And I feel like that's kind of why you do anything in life, to learn. And when you stop learning, then you do something else. So I push the anxiety down, and I go and I keep on learning.
okay, you're obviously doing a great job, right? In that ability to push your anxiety, right? And push yourself forward,
Yeah.
right? In organizing the event. Yeah, one thing, Austin, that you would expect people to gain from attending this year's event, what that would be.
I think you're going to get a lot of really good talks on what I think is fundamental to work right now, which is communication. Um, Especially in the, don't get me wrong, there's going to be some really good, like, technical talks on things like ML ops, right? On Kubernetes security, on Kubernetes itself, on CI/CD. You know, if those things are things you're interested in learning more about, we're going to have stuff for you. But what I think is going to be really important and what people will walk away from with a real appreciation is the talks that we've got on mental health, on communication in a distributed team, on collaboration, multidisciplinary or like cross-functional collaboration in the enterprise, in a big enterprise setting. Because for my entire career, the technology it's not like, I don't want to say it's not secondary, because the technology is important, but the thing that drives the technology and the thing that actually, is the difference between like successful and unsuccessful teams, I feel like, is really based around the communication and collaboration parts of the job. So the talks that we've got from like Aaron Aldrich on, Evergreen DevOps, right, which is all about how people are at sort of the heart of this movement, and the talks from Amy about distributed communication, and the talk we have from Chris Short um, at Amazon, who's going to talk about his sort of mental health journey. And I think these are the things that are like really important that people should show up for and really try to appreciate, because so many, everyone you work with, everyone has stories like this. Everyone has, whatever is going on in their life and whatever they're bringing to the table, in terms of like their struggles or their biases or their assumptions. The difference between teams that can really kind of sit down and perform well and execute and have everyone walk away healthy, and the ones that can't, I think, is based on like how are you at communication? How well can you sort of get past all of the problems that we have in our way towards like being able to communicate about our needs and expectations and whatever. You know, that's the stuff that you can come and listen to, and I think walk away with something that is going to stick with you. Um, Again, not to dismiss like any of the other more like technology focused ones, but that's the stuff I get out of a conference talk is usually the more, human factors, shall we say, right? Um, I also want to say, like, I think Kat's talk is going to be really interesting for people that interested about sort of the open source, like the modern open source community world, and the sort of corporate backed open source. I think this is a bigger discussion that has been happening for the past couple of years, really for the past 20 years, but we're in an interesting new phase of what open source actually means to the world and means to technologists. So I think her story is going to be really interesting to people as well.
Yeah. And do you give talk? Like, do you plan to give a talk during the event?
I'm too busy doing everything else, but no, I will be on there. There's some, unfortunately, by the time this goes out, people won't be able to join. People will be able to see these panels in the recording after we're done, but I will be participating in a couple of panels about the history, sort of the oral history of Deserted Island DevOps, and also a panel on what's next for Deserted Island DevOps. But during the actual show, I will be helping production and directing, so
Yeah,
I'll
you'll be
not be able
busy.
to give a talk.
I got it. So, but
I'll give the
yeah,
opening talk.
okay.
I'll say hi to
So you,
everyone. You'll see me a
okay,
little bit.
okay, that's cool. But Austin, if you like theoretically, if you were one of the keynote speakers, right, and if you had to talk not on technology part, right, but that more like personal and the human element, right, of
Hmm.
tech, what would you talk about? If that's okay to
What would
ask
I
you.
give a keynote about?
Yeah.
Huh. That's a new question. This is a new question to me. It's a good one. Lessons learned from um, the first year of having a child.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the difference between monitoring and observability is explained by my relationship with my 15-year-old daughter, or 15-month-old daughter.
15, okay, months,
15,
not
yeah,
uh,
month, not year. No, it's I like some percentage of people we welcomed a new baby into our family last year, and it was kind of rough. It was very touch and go at the beginning, and learned a lot about myself through that experience. So I probably would talk about that.
Well, I would really honestly would like to listen to hear, right, what you have to share. I believe many.
Maybe give me another 6 to 8 months of processing.
Sure. Yeah, I got it. Okay, great. So Austin, thank you so much for your time and for sharing the insights, right? A little bit like about the conference that is going to happen, right, in September, if I'm not mistaken, September 13th
September
and
14th and 15th.
okay. So 2-day event this year,
2 day
right?
event. It'll be streamed live on Twitch. We're not going. I think it's from like about 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time each day. So, and you'll be able to drop in and drop out. If you'd like more information and links, then again, go to our website, desertedisland.club. There's a register button at the top, and you can get a free ticket that way, and that'll get you into the stream and everything else. Or you can just show up. It'll be live on twitch.tv/Deserted Island TV on September 14th and 15th.
Awesome. Thank you. I will make sure to include the links right in the video that people will be easily like be able to register. Austin,
Definitely.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been a great pleasure to meet with you and to talk with you. I hope we will be able to have you on the show again soon.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
great talking. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
This conference specifically has a Discord channel that people can join and interact there. So it's very nice because it's not like, in a real conference where there's a speaker and then maybe he or she or they are intimidated and people, no, I'm not approaching, or hey, a lot of people are approaching them and it will take time. In Discord, it's flat out. You see, you're in a channel with the speakers. You can just reach out either through the channel or through a private message, and that's it. It's very simple, very straightforward. So I hope that the fact that the platform allows a very direct communication will hopefully help the people want to interact with the speakers and ask questions and stuff like that. I cover, or at least I try to cover, because I only have 30 minutes and I can speak and cover a lot of things, but I try to incorporate both tips about how to manage a technical project and how I built it, but also tips and things to consider when working specifically with GitLab, because since I used it, I read a lot of the documentation, and I stumbled upon a lot of things that needs to be taken into consideration when working with it. So I hope that people would benefit from my talk, not only from the sense of managing a technical project, but also from the angle of, hey, I need to do a migration to GitLab, or I currently use GitLab, but we use implementation X and we want to move to implementation Y. And then people can maybe benefit from the tips that I'm going to say about how I did it and things that I've taken into consideration when I did it. So I usually in my talks, in every talk that I give, I really try to deliver as much content and value to the listeners, because this is my motto. I feel that if I can deliver value, I won't talk. If I talk, it's to deliver value. So I really hope that, and I believe that I structured the talk in a way that will provide as much value to the audience as possible.